There is a strange kind of silence that sometimes falls over a room. Not the polite quiet you hear before a speech. A heavier silence, the kind that feels like the air itself is holding its breath. That is the kind of silence people still talk about when they remember the night Muhammad Ali was asked a simple question on live television. What do you think about Bruce Lee? One question, one answer, 50 million people frozen. And to understand why that moment landed like a punch you never saw coming, you have to understand the two men whose names were suddenly standing side by side in front of the entire world. Muhammad Ali was already more than a boxer. He was not just the heavyweight champion. He was a symbol, a storm, a headline that could walk into any room and bend cameras in his direction. When Ali spoke, people did not just listen. They repeated his words, argued about them, wrote them down. He had turned trash talk into poetry, press conferences into performances, and every fight build-up into its own traveling circus. He insulted opponents, charmed reporters, recited rhymes, and floated through the ring like someone who had decided the laws of gravity did not apply to him. In another corner of the world, there was a different kind of storm gathering. Bruce Lee was not a world champion in a sport with weight classes and scorecards. He was something harder to describe. Part philosopher, part fighter, part actor, part revolution, all on his own. To some people, he was just the man on the movie poster, frozen in a scream, fist cocked, nunchucks in hand. To others, he was the first person who made them believe their small frame did not mean they had to live a small life. He was fast in a way that seemed unreal, sharp in a way that made interviewers nervous. He spoke about water and form, about limitations and fear, about becoming more than the style you were taught. And somewhere in living rooms, bars, dormitories, and cramped apartments around the world, people asked the question that always appears whenever two legends exist at the same time. Who would win? Muhammad Ali or Bruce Lee? For years, it was just that, a barstool fantasy, a conversation people had over late-night television and cold pizza. No one expected either man to actually step into that conversation. Until one night on live TV, someone dragged the question straight into the spotlight. The show itself was not supposed to be historic. It was just another big network talk show. Bright lights, polished desk, live band. The host had that particular kind of confidence that comes from years of pretending 3 cameras and a studio audience are the same thing as a casual conversation. Ali had been on shows like this before. He knew how they worked. Walk on, wave, sit down, turn the couch into a stage, tell a few jokes, brag, argue, sell the next fight, the next appearance, the next chapter of his legend. But when he walked onto the stage that night, something was different. Maybe it was the way people looked at him now. Older, a little slower, still dangerous, still charismatic, but with the weight of years on his shoulders, the wars in the ring, the battles outside it, the choices, the consequences, the exiles, the comebacks. The host had his questions carefully arranged on a stack of blue cards, titles of past fights, opinions on future challengers, a few prepared jokes, but tucked among them was one line that someone in a production meeting had thought would be clever. Ask him about Bruce Lee. Because by then, Bruce Lee was no longer just an actor either. He had become a myth pressed onto VHS tapes and replayed until the images grew fuzzy. Young kids were copying his sounds, his kicks, his stance. Martial arts schools around the world had pictures of him on their walls next to faded tournament posters and certificates. To the network, it was simple. 2 global icons. 1 live show. Why not let them collide in a single question? The band finished its last note as Ali sank into the guest chair. The host smiled. The audience roared and then slowly quieted down. The usual topics came first. The old fights. The famous enemies. The stories everyone had heard, but still wanted to hear again. Ali told them. He knew which lines to hit, which memories to leave alone. He was still funny, still quick, still Ali. And then, like someone casually tossing a lit match toward a pile of dry leaves, the host leaned in a little closer and asked it. Champ, I have to ask this. The whole world argues about it. You have heard this a million times. What do you think about Bruce Lee? You can almost feel the moment tighten. Some people in the audience laughed. It sounded nervous, like they were not sure if this was a joke or a trap. Ali's eyes shifted. He had been asked a version of this question before, in back rooms and quiet corners, but never like this. Not with the red light of the camera burning on, telling him millions of eyes were waiting. The host kept going. I mean it, champ, the dragon of the movies and the king of the ring. People say, what if, who would win, Bruce Lee or Muhammad Ali? What do you say to that? This time there was no laughter. Just the soft murmur of people adjusting in their seats, the faint buzz of the studio lights, and somewhere in living rooms around the world, people leaned a little closer to their televisions. Ali could have done what everyone expected. He could have smiled, thrown out an easy line. Bruce Lee, I would knock him out in 3 seconds. The audience would laugh, the host would clap, and the world would move on. But that is not what happened. Ali sat back for a second, like he was watching the question bounce around in his mind, looking for the right place to land. I will tell you something, he said slowly. The host went quiet. The band, the crew, the audience, all waiting. I am the greatest, Ali continued. Everybody knows I say that. I believe it. I had to believe it. You cannot walk into the ring thinking any other way. A few people chuckled, relieved. This sounded familiar. This was the character they knew. But, he added, and the word hung in the air, heavier than anyone expected, being the greatest in one world does not mean you are the greatest in every world. The laughter stopped. Ali went on. What that man did with his body, with his mind, that is something else. Different game, different rules, different way of moving. You cannot judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree, and you cannot judge a martial artist by how he does in a boxing ring. The host blinked, his rehearsed joke suddenly useless. So he tried, you are saying Bruce Lee. I am saying, Ali interrupted, that if you watch Bruce Lee and the first thing you think is, could I beat him? Then you are missing the whole point. For a moment, no one seemed to remember they were part of a show. Ali's voice shifted. Less playful, more reflective. That man took what he learned from everywhere, Ali said. He was not afraid to break the rules. He was not afraid to say, this works, I keep it. This does not, I throw it away. You know how hard that is. People want to belong to a thing, a team, a style, a system. He chose truth over tradition. That is dangerous. The camera cut to the host, but he had nothing to add. Ali was not finished. You watch him move, you see confidence, he said. Not the loud kind, not the kind where you shout, I am the greatest, into every microphone. His confidence is quiet. It is in the way he stands, the way he breathes, the way he looks at you like he has already seen every move you are about to make. He paused, then let a half-smile curve his mouth. Now you put him in my ring, under my rules, my gloves, my rounds, Ali shrugged. I am still betting on me, that is my house. The audience laughed again, but softer this time, like they were afraid to break something delicate. But, Ali continued quickly, you put me in his world with his rules, his speed, his weapons, his kicks, his everything. You would be a fool to bet your house on me in that fight. That was the moment the silence fell. Because what he had just done was bigger than answering a fantasy matchup question. He had taken the whole argument, the late night, who would win debate, and turned it into something else entirely. Respect. The host tried to recover. So you are saying it is a draw, he joked, reaching for anything to pull this back into comfortable talk show territory. Ali shook his head. No, he said, I am saying you cannot measure two different mountains with the same ruler. He leaned forward, his eyes locked on the host now, but his words aimed at the world behind the cameras. People always want to see a fight, Ali said. That is what I learned. They see two men who are great in different ways, and the first thing they ask is not what can I learn from both of them. It is who would win. That is fear talking. Fear, the host repeated. Fear that someone else being great makes you smaller, Ali replied. Fear that there is only so much greatness to go around, so if Bruce Lee is great, maybe there is less left for Muhammad Ali. That is foolish. His greatness does not take from mine. Mine does not take from his. It is the same light shining through two different windows. Somewhere in the audience, someone exhaled loudly, almost like a gasp. Ali heard it, he smiled. You want to know the truth, he said. When I watch Bruce Lee, I do not think about beating him. I think, now there is a man who understands the fight inside the fight. the one people never see, the one up here. He tapped his temple. The one in here. He placed a hand over his chest. The cameras see the punches, he said. The crowd hears the yells, the blood, the sweat that is easy to show. But the decision to stand up one more time when your legs are finished, the choice to walk your own path when the world tells you to stay in your lane, that is the real fight. And that man fought that fight very well. The host sat back. He had never heard Ali talk like this on his show. For years, the heavyweight champion had been a reliable source of noise, funny, sharp, cocky. But in that moment, the mask slipped, and the poet behind the provocateur stepped forward. And let me tell you one more thing, Ali added. If you are a young man watching and your first question is, could Bruce Lee beat Muhammad Ali? Then I want you to ask yourself a different question. He lifted his chin, eyes directly into the camera. Ask yourself, what would my life look like if I chased my potential the way those two men did? He spread his hands. That is the only fight that really matters to you. In homes around the world, people sat in front of their televisions, motionless. Some were fans of Ali, who had tuned in expecting jokes and jabs and clever lines. Some were fans of Bruce Lee, waiting to be offended, ready to hear their hero dismissed as a mere movie star pretending to be what Ali had proven in blood. What they got instead was something they had not prepared for. Humility. Perspective. A heavyweight acknowledging another man's genius without feeling smaller for it. It is easy to underestimate how rare that was. At the time, the world was used to competition being framed as war. One had to be better. One had to be right. One had to be the real fighter, the real legend, the real man. But here was Muhammad Ali, of all people, standing in front of them and saying in his own way, "You do not have to erase one mountain to admire another." In the studio, the host finally found his voice. "Champ," he said, "you know you just ended about 1,000,000 bar fights with that answer." Ali laughed. "I doubt it," he said. "People like to argue, but maybe one or two of them will hear what I meant." "What did you mean?" the host asked. Ali looked at him, looked at the audience, looked straight through the camera. "I meant this," he said. "Do not spend your life watching two men who found their path and only asking who could beat who. Ask instead, where is my path? Because Bruce Lee is not here to fight me. I am not here to fight him. We are both here in whatever time God gave us to show what it looks like when a man refuses to be average." For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then the audience erupted in applause. It was not the wild, laughing applause that usually followed one of Ali's punchlines. It sounded different, a little slower, a little deeper. The sound people make when they know they have heard something they will remember years later, even if they cannot quite explain why. After the show, the clips started to travel. First in reruns, then in taped copies passed from hand to hand. Later in grainy uploads that found their way onto computer screens and phones. The title changed as it hopped from one platform to another, but the heartbeat of it stayed the same. Muhammad Ali talks about Bruce Lee. Muhammad Ali's honest answer about Bruce Lee. Muhammad Ali shuts down Bruce Lee versus Ali debate. People watched it for different reasons. Some came for the spectacle, the rare sight of one legend talking about another. Some came for validation, to hear their favorite chosen as the hypothetical winner. Some came just to see if the story they had heard was true. But many stayed because of one particular feeling they could not quite shake. The sense that, in that brief conversation, something more important had been said than just this man or that man. They replayed the moment where Ali said, "His greatness does not take from mine." They paused on the line. You cannot measure two different mountains with the same ruler. They listened again to him asking, what would your life look like if you chased your potential the way those two men did? And slowly, almost quietly, the clip became more than a piece of sports trivia. It became a mirror. Imagine a teenager stumbling across it late at night. He has just finished watching a highlight reel of knockouts, then a montage of Bruce Lee kicks. The algorithm serves him the interview. He clicks, half interested. He expects a joke. Instead, he hears Ali talk about fear, about comparison, about the uselessness of asking who would win, when the more powerful question is, what could I become? He does not say it out loud, but something inside him stands up a little straighter. Imagine an older fan, someone who grew up watching Ali fight live on a flickering television in a crowded room. Someone who snuck into a cinema years later to watch Bruce Lee on the big screen, mesmerized by the speed, the sound, the crack of each strike. They find the clip shared by a friend's social media post, along with a caption, "This is what real respect looks like." They press play and feel time fold in on itself. They remember what it felt like when those men were not legends yet, when they were just names and faces and attitudes that made the world feel bigger than it had the day before. And now, years later, they watch Ali refuse to turn another man's brilliance into a punchline. There is a kind of healing in that. Because comparison does not just corrupt how we see others, it corrodes how we see ourselves. Of course, the debates did not vanish. People still argue about Bruce Lee versus Muhammad Ali. They break down weight classes and reach, gloves and rule sets, striking styles and footwork. They bring in physics, biomechanics, theories about street fights and organized bouts. They make charts, watch reenactments, analyze interviews. But somewhere in the middle of that noise, there is now a quiet answer sitting in the corner, arms folded, waiting. It is the answer Ali gave that night. 2 men, 2 lives, 2 paths that never truly crossed, except in the minds of millions of people who needed to believe that greatness can be measured like a scoreboard. Ali did not refuse the question because he was afraid. He refused it because, in that moment, he saw through it. He saw that an obsession with who would win is often just a way to avoid asking, who could I become? As the years passed, both men took on almost mythical status. Bruce Lee, frozen in time, forever young, forever fast, forever on the edge of another impossible kick. Muhammad Ali, the man who aged in front of the world, whose body slowed even as his legend grew, who carried the consequences of everything he had won and everything he had lost. One man became a symbol of potential energy, raw, unfinished, cut short. The other became a symbol of endurance, of what happens when glory and cost travel together for decades. But if you watch that old interview with Ali and you listen closely, you can hear something linking them. It is not their fighting ability. It is not their fame. It is not the endless arguments about who would beat whom. It is the sound of a man who has truly tested himself, recognizing another man who did the same. There is a particular tone people use when they talk about someone whose struggle they understand. A mix of admiration and recognition. The words might be about technique, style, speed, philosophy. But underneath, they are saying, I know what it costs to live like that. Ali knew what it cost to be Ali. And in that moment, he showed that he understood what it must have cost to be Bruce Lee. In the end, maybe that is why the world froze. Not because Muhammad Ali said Bruce Lee would win. Not because he said he would. Not because he offered the definitive answer to an unanswerable fantasy. People froze because, just for a moment, the loudest man in sports stopped performing and let a deeper truth slip out. Greatness is not a contest you win by tearing down someone else. It is a standard you set for yourself, again and again, until your life becomes proof that you refuse to be average. Bruce Lee did that in his world. Muhammad Ali did that in his. And on that night, in the glow of studio lights and television cameras, with 50 million people watching, one mountain looked across the distance and bowed his head to another. The host moved on. The show ended. The credits rolled. The commercials played. But somewhere between the question and the answer, between the expectation of a punchline and the arrival of something much quieter, something shifted. A boy in his living room, a man in a bar, a woman watching from a small apartment. They all heard the same thing, even if they would describe it with different words. Stop asking who would win. Start asking who you could become. Because the only fight that truly belongs to you is the one between the life you are living and the life you are capable of living. The rest is just noise. And that is the real reason. When Muhammad Ali spoke about Bruce Lee on live TV that night, 50 million people did not just freeze. For a brief, electric moment, they woke up.